For all you youngins out there, y'all have no idea. Before any internet, dial-up, all that, the only types of Asian people on any sort of TV and television screen, it was very stereotypical roles, and you never saw someone Asian at all. And Bobby Lee was one of the first ever pioneers when it came to entertainment in the Western world. And we need to give this man his flowers.
You did it when nobody else could.
You did it for us.
Yeah.
We bow to you.
And people don't fully know.
I'm also going to talk about how his girlfriend, Khalyla, ex-girlfriend, and him put together an empire that essentially saved his own life and career called Tigerbelly.
And when I met him, he was so broken and he was so down on himself and he was just so like lost.
Bobby Lee grew up the very traditional Asian immigrant refugee story. His parents came from Korea all the way to Poway, California, opened up a clothing shop, and he and his brother Steve Lee grew up as the first generation Korean American.
Here in the 60s.
1968.
Oh my God.
Wow.
America, there was a lot of racism, is what you're saying?
I think so.
Yeah.
But that's the only one I experienced.
Ah.
You know.
Going through the whole struggle of having that very traditional tiger parenting and having that Western individualism mindset. Fast forward, he decided to go the anti-Asian route. This comes along with not going to be a doctor, a lawyer. I'm going to be a comedian. So he started doing stand-up, and he followed the likes of his mentors like Pauly Shore and Carlos Mencia.
And I found out that the oldest written document ever found in Asia was discovered in Korea. Yeah, you know what it said? You go now, no browsing, you touch, you buy.
He was a struggling comedian trying to make ends meet. But it wasn't until Mad TV and being able to book those shows, that's when he started to get recognition. That's when I was like, when I was watching TV, I'm like, hey, it's one of me on the screen. Asians can be on TV too?
Thank you, Cho. Our North Korean government is releasing to the media footage of our nuclear test, as well as footage of our scientists at work.
Once Bobby signed on to Mad TV, the success of Mad TV ran on for 9 years, and he was a part of this. The only downside of being a part of Mad TV is that there was a very Asian-centric roles that he was playing. The nerdy guy, the Korean with a very thick accent.
Find his lay back, and he lay say he have a lay meeting.
And he even brought on his brother to help him out too, but that's for another story. His overall role as a struggling comedian, as well as his roles in the typecasted Mad TV roles, that's when he starts to break out into the entertainment industry. He was able to book a couple roles in other big movies like The Dictator. But after all these minor roles and a little claim to fame on Mad TV, he was still struggling as a comedian, struggling to make ends meet and maybe even hanging up the mic.
A decade. Mm-hmm. And when I met him, he was so broken and he was so down on himself and he was just so like lost. And he was still like looking at these gatekeepers of Hollywood thinking like, hand me something, have I not done enough?
Wasn't until he made an appearance on the DVD ASA show, a podcast hosted by David Cho, Asa Akira, and he started to make his own appearance on this. His weird things like having glue on his thumb or talking about how he would wake up at 4 p.m. and play Destiny with his brother on Xbox. And then, he talks about how he met his girlfriend on Tinder. That girl was Khalyla Kuhn.
I'm really excited because we have a big show today.
The minute that these two were on the DVD ASA podcast, by the way, I met them, shout out to the DVD ASA crew, you could see the chemistry that not only Bobby had with David Cho, a famous artist, Bobby Lee's overall relationship and dynamic with his current girlfriend, Khalyla Kuhn, was almost inseparable. The very openness and how they had this back and forth role You can see the chemistry not only behind, but on camera.
Just so happened at that time, that was my first time doing it as well. I had never done it prior.
I don't even know what Pollyanna romance means. That's how smart she is.
Through the DVD ASA podcast, you could start to see, wait, Bobby Lee is a really chill and hilarious dude. Why isn't this guy booking more roles? Why isn't this guy more in the spotlight? He put in his thousands hours of stand-up and work, and the entertainment industry did not give him his flowers. David Cho eventually went through being canceled, and he had to take down his entire DVD ASA podcast, RIP. But Khalyla reached out to Bobby and was like, hey, how about we start a podcast?
And then when DVDSA ended, Khalyla was just like, let's start our own. And I was like, nah, it's not going to work. So she goes, well, fine, I'm going to just do it on my own then. So she went and bought the equipment, and we were living in a condo at the time in Hollywood, and she would do them on her own.
This is where George Kimmel comes into play. George Kimmel was a podcast producer for Maker Studios, and he was in charge of running Bobby Lee's own YouTube channel back in the day. Those three teamed up, and they decided to create something called Tigerbelly.
Why aren't you working on this? On one of our Tigerbelly Instagram photos. Ooh. And then I replied with, yeah, George, why aren't you? Because I had met George once at Maker. And I knew that, you had been working with Bobby.
I responded, if they're ever having a Hunger Games for who can be Gilbert's assistant, I'm in.
Oh, that's right.
From there, 100+ episodes later, we have Tigerbelly. From that power of social media, Bobby Lee was able to book roles, decline roles, and overall have his spotlight and claim to fame. He himself still has doubts and insecurities, but to this day, he is still one of the GOATs when it comes to Asian representation in the media, as being one of the first ever pioneers when it comes to us on camera.
Without you. That's true. That's true. I'm Bruce Lee. There's nothing. There's a void. There's nothing. There's nothing.
How about this?
And then there's Bobby Lee on Mad TV, and you're like, oh, there's hope.
Yeah.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
I'm not going to talk about the fact that they broke up, but the fact that Khalyla and Bobby met, that's when his whole career flipped for the better.
Established people, it means a lot to me because I feel like that reverberates more in his body than it would coming from, somebody like me who just loves him for whatever chaos comes, whatever form or shape that he comes in, right? And so that means a lot to me, hearing that.
That's when he started to realize that, wait, there's a business opportunity here. I'm talented. I put thousands of hours of work, and I'm finally getting the recognition that I deserve. And this proves to the fact that, hey, you can keep going and going, and there might be a time where you might give up, but you never know what one piece of content and a business plan behind that can change and save your entire life and career. And if he'd never met Khalyla and he never went on the DVDSA podcast, we would have gotten Bobby Lee as he is today. You never heard of Steve Lee. You never heard of his Bad Friends podcast. You never heard of any of these folks where something just aligned in the world where it's like, finally, we can give this man his flowers.
Single camera sitcom. I gotta be on this movie. You've been on movies with the biggest movie stars on the planet. You have been on sitcoms. You do
I just want to do my dream is when I first signed up for open mic.
Yes.
Back when I was 23 years old, I just remember signing my name and going, I want to do it all.
And that is the TLDR origin of Tigerbelly, Bobby Lee, and how he paved the way for having Asians in the Western world when it comes to any sort of media. This was before Steven Yeun, before, what's his face? Simu Liu, right? Before any of this, Bobby Lee was the first one to do it. And he faced that whole scrutiny of the Western world where Asians weren't really allowed, quote unquote, or there wasn't a demographic or audience for it. But look how far we've come. Look how far we've come. My name is Peter. You're watching Broke the Habit. Follow me on Instagram at BTHPeter. And that was the story of Tigerbelly and Bobby Lee. It just proves to you that it's like everyone's career is so different, right? It's all this squiggly line and all that. It's never here to here. And you never get to see the pitfalls, the downfalls, the doubts, the insecurities. All you really see is just, oh, he's successful. No, man. Going through the struggle and going through adversity, that is perseverance. That's what no one ever talks about. That's what y'all don't see. But I hope that this was able to motivate you and be like, not trying to be the next Bobby Lee, but be able to do whatever it is you want to do and be damn talented at it. Time will tell if you put in the work. I'll see you all in the next one.